It's time to talk about Gerhard Struber. It's time to talk about the awful New York Red Bulls. It's time to talk about Red Bull out, Struber out, a lot of people out. This is completely separate from the Dante Van Zier incident, which was the first telltale sign that he should be gone. He's still here. The fans will protest. This is not what I'm focusing on. While I agree that that should have been the one and only see you later, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the fact that this man was bought for $2 million, maybe 2.5, if I think his incentives were met, from Barnsley, because apparently he was great at getting a youth focused setting really successful in the program. Instead, he has led this team in 2023 to their worst start in recorded MLS history. And there is no sign of getting out of it. Statistically, worst start, by the way. People have compared our 2009 season, which is historically one of the worst starts or worst seasons in MLS history. This start is worse than the start from that season. Our players aren't at the level that it needs to be. He is not getting them any better, and the ownership is not supporting. It's a nightmare from top to bottom, but the buck has to stop with him. Red Bull love their underlying stats of expected goals and chances created and pressures in the attacking third and blah, 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 blah. But what nobody wants to talk about is the fact that there are no results and no answers for bad performances. And this all comes off of last night's despicable, I'm going to use the term despicable, performance against bottom of the table CF Montreal, who were down a man for 30 minutes, and we generated a single chance. We are ineffective at playing actual football when we're asked to. We are only relevant, semi-relevant, because our defenders, Andres Reyes, outside of his own goal ability, has been very, very good. Nealis has been strong. And when Cornell isn't making dumb 15-year-old goalkeeper mistakes by coming out of his box and not talking to anybody, he's one of the best in the league. No question. There is not an ounce of attacking creativity or understanding of a system, passing patterns, movement, no penetrating runs for the ball. I was watching this game yesterday, and every time the ball gets swung from left to right, people just stand there. Nobody is trying to make these penetrating runs to open space and create chances. We're just standing there. Lewis Morgan in 2022 was like Harry Potter's invisibility cloak. But instead of Harry Potter being under the invisibility cloak, it's Gerhard Struber's garbage tactics being under Lewis Morgan's wonder goals. He makes something out of nothing consistently. And he was the only reason this team found any success in 2022. It was very clear that we were overachieving out of our mind last year. Struber is tactically inept, by the way. We're sitting there with a man up on the worst team in the league, one of the worst teams in the league, and he just doesn't do anything. He made one sub in the middle. He only took players off when they got hurt. There was no change in the system, and there was no explanation why. The worst part about it, as I mentioned, was the fact that we have no idea what we're doing when we get to the attacking third. When you watch certain games, a lot of it is played in transition, but there are times when the ball gets into the attacking phase and you hold it and you're creating chances, you're moving players, you're moving pieces, trying to get in. Here is a list of all the goals that we have scored, all 6 of them, by the way. Minnesota, off a corner kick. Columbus, a rebound goal on a counterattack where we were down a man and got lucky that somebody swung and missed. And then a cross from Tolkien to Van Zier to score. Charlotte, the defender missed his trap. It went over his foot, and Elias Manuel tucked in to score. San Jose, we scored on a set piece. Houston, we scored on a set piece. And we got shut out against many other teams. We have one legit goal from open play, maybe 2 if you count the counterattack goal. This hasn't been a death run. This hasn't been like New York City, Atlanta, Cincinnati, New England, Seattle, St. Louis, LA. Like we haven't played the top 5 teams in every conference. We played Montreal, played Charlotte, Orlando, Nashville, Columbus, Atlanta. That's not like it's not ridiculous to think that we should be getting, and San Jose, that we should be getting results out of those games. It's not. But here we are sitting here clueless. All we do whenever this stuff happens is change shape and hope it works. If you watch that game yesterday, every time they lost the ball, instead of fighting it back, like Jesse Marsh's system, anytime the ball was turned over, 9 guys are fighting to get it back because they believed in his system. They believed in what it meant. We lost the ball, and everybody just tossed their hands up and said, "Oh man, that sucks," and walked back, leaving it 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 3-on-2. The guys don't want to play for him anymore. They don't play for the badge. They don't care about it because they know at the end of the day, they're just either getting dropped to USL or they're getting sold somewhere else. This is the problem that comes from Red Bull Global. And I've had this whole thing planned out, but there are 3 main levels. The players aren't good enough. We don't spend money on players in the middle of our roster. The middle of our roster is made up basically of a bunch of homegrown players who are bang average at best. We swing and miss on all our DPs. Our coach doesn't have good enough tactics and doesn't understand how to make changes when he needs to. And at the very top of it all, Red Bull Global does not care about us. The way you fix this is Red Bull out. Red Bull leaving, having somebody who comes in with a proper idea and wants to spend the money and not turn us into a feeder club. That's the way it goes. But because that will never happen, Struber has to go. It needs to stop somewhere, and it has to stop with the head coach who has been leading us to the worst start in recorded history. I yield my time.
Yeah, Struber out because, as you said, he's lost the locker room. I think this Montreal game, if any game, says that the most. I mean, I don't clearly this Red Bull team at the start of the season, you'd say they would mop the floor with Montreal. You tell them that Red Bull's going to be up a player for 30 minutes as well. You'd be like, oh, it's going to be a blowout. It's not even going to be close. And yet they lost. Not even that, you lost in the period where you were up a man. You got outscored in the period where you were up a man. It's clear that the players either don't buy into the system or don't buy into him, and that he's completely lost the locker room. This team is just going to spiral continuously until they make a change. I don't know if the locker room loss is related to the Van Zier incident. I would imagine it has to be, at least in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if it's the sole reason, but it certainly accelerated it. I don't think the players trust his system. I don't think they like him. I feel like I remember even BWP talking about this on 360. And I think he said something along the lines of, yeah, I wouldn't want to play for this guy right now. And I can't imagine that is far-fetched to say that there are plenty of guys in the Red Bull locker room that feel the exact same way. I don't know why Struber isn't out already. He should have been after the whole Van Zier incident. But if the results aren't an indicator of that even more, I don't know what is keeping Struber here at the moment. He should be gone. And Red Bull should really look to reassess after all of this. Reassess on the team, reassess in the direction. But to your point, I highly doubt that will happen. I think you will continue to be a feeder club. You will continue to look to get players through the draft and through homegrown signings and just continue to be that pipeline. I mean, as long as you keep producing players like John Tolkien, you will continue to be a pipeline. But yeah, I think Struber should have been out yesterday.
That is absolutely correct on all parts. But here's the story I want to tell before we move on, because I'm not spending all day doing it. I could, but I'm not going to. At the end of the 2021 season, or somewhere in the middle of it, Sean Davis talked about how he would run through a wall for Gerhard Struber. It's a man you want to get behind, a man you want to play for. You know, he gets you going, he makes you going. The end of that year, he jumped ship to Nashville. They offered him a contract. He said no and bounced. So either he was blowing smoke or he wanted a new challenge. To me, I think he was saying that just to get the team on his side. But he wasn't going to play for him either. If your captain isn't going to play for you, what's the point? What's the point? It's a bad day to be a supporter of this club. It is disappointing from where we came from. I mean, look at our 2013 to 2018 was our bread and butter, and in just 5 years we've fallen off into obscurity. So hopefully something changes soon. We shall see. But give me the next name on your list.
All right, next name on my list. I'm gonna skip one that I feel like I've mentioned before. I'm gonna go for one that might be more up in the air right now. And I'll be curious to know what you think.